we have to end on a positive note because we need to bring some inspiration and strength to our viewers from around the world. So we have another segment, Hero of the Week. Emily, who's your hero of the week?
So during this time, I've been fortunate enough to visit some of the soldiers and the civilians who were injured in the October 7th attack in the hospitals. One of the people I met a lot of heroes, to be completely honest, but one of the people I met that I wanted to share about was Joey. He's from the Philippines, and he's working in Israel as a caretaker. And he was in Kibbutz Be'eri, cares for an elderly man in his 70s there. And he shared with me how he woke up in the morning from the rocket fire, tried to get the elderly man to assist him, who refused. He didn't want to go to the shelter. He didn't quite understand what was going on. And despite calling the family and doing everything he could to get him to come hide in the shelter in the house, the man refused and wanted to stay in the kitchen. So the family of the elderly man told the caretaker, go to the shelter, stay in the shelter. We don't know what's happening yet. This is still very early in the morning, 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. So Joey ended up staying in that shelter for about 12 hours until the army was able to come and rescue him. And he said that from outside, they could hear gunshots the whole time. They could hear screaming. They could hear people being killed. They ultimately walked into the house where he was, shouted at the elderly man and demanded to know where his children were. That's what they were looking for when they walked in.
We're looking for children.
And so he physically, because the bomb shelter doors don't lock, he physically had to hold the door up to block them. So he stood there for 12 hours.
Holding that door.
12 hours holding that door. And they lit the house on fire after they had shot the elderly man that he takes care of. The house did burn down, but the bomb shelter is fireproof, so he covered the door with a wet rag to prevent the smoke inhalation. And waited.
He waited. Of mind.
So what ended up happening in the end was the IDF had shot at the door at the entrance to gain access, and he was injured as a result of that, which is why I ended up encountering him in the hospital. But the thing that struck me about it, and the reason why he's my hero of the week, is because he was so resolute about his support for Israel. He comes from the Philippines. He's part of a big group of Filipinos who love and care and pray on a regular basis for Israel. He even has a tattoo of Israel. And we said to him, are you going to stay? Are you planning to go home and recover from this? And he was like, no, if I can, I'm never leaving. My heart is with Israel, and I'm staying with Israel no matter what. And this is where I want to be. And it's just so inspiring to see that, like, at the same time we're dealing with all these psychotic enemies who are supporting terror, we have people who will give their lives to defend this country who aren't even Jewish.
Yeah.
So that's my hero of the week.
Joey from the Philippines, hero of the week. Ashira.
My hero of the week is Ophir. We all met Ophir when we were at Kibbutz Be'eri, and she was the IDF spokesperson. The reason why she is my hero of the week is she told her story that she came there and she's seen the bodies. This girl is, maybe 20 years old. 20 years old?
Yeah.
The strength she spoke with, and the fact that she went into these houses and all the rubble to find letters. She said she found old letters that people had written to Ben Gurion, and she saved them because she said people need to have this for when they return back to the kibbutz. They need to have this strength. But what really stood out to me with her, she said, this has been really hard on my mental health and my soul, but now is not the time for me to take care of myself. Now is the time to stay focused on the mission. And I just took her words and they strengthened me, because we're not only fighting a physical war, we're fighting a spiritual war, an emotional war, and we are all fighting a media war. Yeah. And we need to arm ourselves accordingly. And just to see the strength of her, of a 20-year-old, and all of our IDF soldiers, how they're keeping up their morale and their strength to fight for us.
They're teasing their children.
I don't know how people understand, like, these are 18, 19.
These are kids. These are kids in America that be getting drunk in college and they're fighting for their country. And they're doing it with pride. And they're doing it with desire to save their people. It's just incredible. Thank you. Ophir, we have a picture of her. My hero of the week is that lovely Druze lady that we met that came down with us on a bus. Her name is Atel Badira. Her and her husband are from the village of Bet Shan, and she gathers clothing and toiletries and anything, and food, anything soldiers may need. And she goes from the north of Israel. She drives 4-5 hours to the south of Israel to give these things to those soldiers. She's a Druze woman. And she said, and her husband said, at the end of that tour that we were on, Am Yisrael Chai, says, we're Druze, we're with you, we've put in our lot with you. It reminded me of the story of Ruth. You know, where you go, I go.
Yes.
Where you go, I go.
Yes.
Your people are my people.
Yes.
I just like to say the Arab-Israeli community during this conflict, I know we have tensions and there are inequalities and we have to continue to work on those things.
Absolutely.
But the response
I agree.
of the majority of the Arab-Israeli community is one of the most powerful things I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, you know, when we say Am Yisrael Chai and we're talking about the state of Israel, it's not just It's not just Jews.
No.
It's not just Jews.
It's us and all the minorities who have, like Ruth, thrown in their lot with us, the Jewish people. We owe them so much, and we will protect them as we protect our own.
Yes.
Ladies,
Yachad nenatzeach.
Nenatzeach.
I can't end something without saying that anymore.
Yachad nenatzeach, Am Yisrael Chai, and we'll see you next week.